merciful Lord God has allowed us once again to complete another great fast in our lives, because today is the official ending of Great Lent. But don't get too excited, as I said to you last week, because we still have another commemorative time next week called Holy Week, where Christ goes to his passion voluntarily. And in that 1 week he accomplishes many things to do with our salvation and with the history of the world in general. It's interesting that the resurrection of Lazarus on the Saturday before this is very rarely spoken of today by people who call themselves Christians. And if it is, it's often put into some sort of sarcastic or unrighteous term. You have to remember that the Jews were very careful in the burial of their dead. They anointed them with various oils and spices, and they wrapped them in many wrappings and cloths and laid them in a place which was not like a grave, but more like a cave, and rolled heavy stones upon that, which nobody could really remove by themselves. And thus Lazarus, who was sick and was the brother of Martha and Mary, who particularly loved the Lord, and the Lord often stayed with them and taught them things. And if you recall one incident where Martha was going about making dips and various little snacks, while Mary sat at Christ's feet and listened to his words. And Martha complained about that, saying, doesn't my sister come and help me? And the Lord answers to her, saying that Mary chose the best part, because she's going to learn about the kingdom of heaven and how to save her soul. In any case, both women were holy women, and Lazarus also. On account of this incident, the Sanhedrin, which is today's equivalent of synods, decided that they should get rid of Christ and Lazarus because too many of the Jews were turning to belief in Christ. Lazarus escaped to Cyprus, where his relics are found today. And if ever you have a chance to visit that place, by all means, do. He had the opportunity of the 3 days while he was dead to glimpse the mystery of the other world, which, as I've said to you on many other occasions, was difficult to put into words for our understanding. And therefore, very little has come down to us about exactly what he said. His silence, I think, about these sorts of things testified to the fact that there is going to be a resurrection from the dead, and that there will be a judgment, and that there will be a separation between those who do good and those who do evil. And because it is for eternity, it's a scary thing, and therefore one struggles to be on that side of Christ which will grant them salvation. The works that Christ did in the 3 years of his mission, he raised the dead, healed the blind, healed the sick, created all sorts of things. People saw all this and realized that this person was exceedingly special. I mean, imagine feeding how many thousands of men one evening, several evenings actually, that came to listen to him, not counting the women and the children that were there as well, from a couple of fish and a few loaves of bread. It just kept on multiplying, and there was so much left over that they collected basketfuls later on. News about these things spread very quickly, and more people began to believe in Christ and his ways. What he taught made sense, because what the Sanhedrin taught did not make sense. In it was no salvation, because no matter what sort of theology they may have brought forth, it was not unto salvation, because they could not conquer the hold that the demonic powers had upon both people living and especially upon those that had reposed. The only way that that hold could be loosened was by the Lord himself, by going into that nether world and essentially bursting the power that demonic powers reigned at that point. For this reason, we have nothing to fear in our lives when we are faced with evil situations, because they will pass us by, and we need not be caught up by them and make them a big deal in our lives. Certainly, whatever problems you have in life, and all of us have problems in life, take them as a form of a gift from God in order to help you see your own faults and heal them. Because if you go through life with difficulties and never thank the Lord for it and never learn from that, then we call that fruitlessness. You haven't fixed up that which is important to your life, namely a soul that loves God with all their mind, all their soul, with all their being. And that's the way we should be, no matter what is happening to us. They say that bad times never last, and I think that's pretty true. Yes, some people have bad times for longer periods than others. Some people seem not to have any bad times at all, but when you scratch under the surface, you find that their lives are often very horrendous, and you would not want to swap their billions of dollars and live that sort of life. This is especially relevant to the super rich, who pose in front of each other and try and do each other out by what? All they have is material goods. That's all they have. You know, one's got a Bentley, another's got a Rolls Royce, another one's got a Maserati or something. And they try to outdo each other, who's got the best of this or the best of that or the best fashion or something like that. None of that goes to the grave with them, whoever they might be. And on the contrary, it is a major distraction. There have been incidences where I know of a lady who was so attached to her fur coat that even men could not unclench her hands when she had died. She was hanging on to this coat so much they had to bury her with the coat. to what extent people can attach themselves to these sorts of things. Our life on earth is supposed to be one of continued disentanglement. And those who particularly take up the monastic path are especially tempted by these sorts of things. Those of you who have seen that Russian movie called The Island might remember that the abbot of the monastery there was given beautiful boots by a metropolitan from Mount Athos, whom he treasured very highly, living in the Arctic Circle. It gets very cold there, and nice warm boots are a wondrous thing to have. This abbot was a righteous person and a fairly high caliber of spirituality. But he saw in this monk, who was what the word in English is, the one who continually stokes the fire to heat the rooms, with coal. And this monk used to live on a pile of coal and regularly go and dig it up, because that whole area in the Arctic Circle of Russia is full of natural resources, coal being one of them. And he would come secretly and talk to him about spiritual life. And when he told him about these beautiful boots, this humble monk grabbed them and threw them in the fire. The abbot was beside himself. He said, "What have you done? Destroyed my best clothing, my best boots." He said, No, I've chased the demons away that were holding you to the earth. And he thought about it and said, You're right. I was attached to that. And not unto Christ. It's okay to have those sort of things, but it's not okay when you're attached to them and hold on to them beyond all things. I think you've all probably been through situations where there was something that you considered as a treasure that you have that you lost, or something like this. Well, okay, don't lament about it too much, because it's God's providence that you don't have that attachment. Our late spiritual father Vladimir had a similar incident with his Matushka. He, for her birthday, I think, bought her a very expensive and beautiful camel coat. In those days, they were very valuable. And would you believe, within a few months, moths had gotten to it and ruined it. Of course, she was sad and that, but she realised that having something like that and having an attachment to something like that is not unto salvation. And we are given this time on earth to sort ourselves out, so that if we were to die tomorrow or the next day or whatever, we won't be missing any of these worldly things in our life. But rather that we would rejoice because our time had come to stand before the Lord and give an account of our own lives, that we have strived to keep the commandments, we have strived to do the right thing, we have never caused harm to others, certainly not deliberately, slandered or murdered or anything like that. And believe me, murder occurs more often than you think, particularly in the realm of abortion. People who, for example, use medication to stop pregnancy, as I understand, don't actually stop it, but very shortly after conception the fetus is killed. Look, because life begins at conception, when the soul is given by God to the flesh that is there. Of course, the world would argue with that vehemently. Why? Because there's billions of dollars involved. That's why. And these sort of things have contributed greatly to the demise of the Christian peoples. Russia, for example, has probably the lowest birth rate in the world, so it's extinguishing itself out, followed very closely by other Orthodox countries and the rest of Europe, Africa being probably the only place where the birth rate is increasing. Even though those people are not Orthodox, maybe through some sort of grace of God, they will find the truth. Because whenever we read these Gospels, we always come across this comment here or there about truth, about knowing the right things, the absolute right things, the absolute right answers to all the questions of life. Not just opinions, but absolute right questions. Because the Lord is absolute truth and gives absolute answers to all things. Not always directly, often like in terms of analogies or something like this. In any case, today is a big celebration. The people have realized that this man, Jesus Christ, is the Lord and King. And they rejoiced on account of this. Another group gnashed their teeth and prepared a way to kill him, which would happen on the coming Friday, as we use this as a commemorative period. And in all those cases, the Lord was in total control. This is what he wanted. This is what he had providentially organized, because he had to get into that nether world to destroy the demonic realm and its hold upon the souls of the dead and its hold upon the people of the world who are still trying to find the truth of things. May God help us in this coming week to indeed reflect and read about the incidences which occur, because each day is full of all these sort of things which lead to Christ being arrested, tried illegally, beaten, crucified, buried, and on the third day rises again as a man, this time never to be again hurt in any way, but on the contrary, giving us an indication of what we might expect at our resurrection, if we are worthy to be saved, that our resurrection will be a new man, a new person, a godlike person, and we will be given a godlike dwelling place, which don't ask me what it's like, because it is one of these mystical and hidden things which are only hinted at, especially in the last book of the New Testament, the revelation of St. John the theologian. Some people have glimpsed it, but only glimpsed it. But it's far greater than that. So try and keep this week peaceful. Try and keep it quiet. You can read these prayers for the daily services at home. They're available. They're available in any language, in English and whatever, on the internet and elsewhere. And you will see all the different incidences that happen, the washing of the feet, the arrest in the garden, how when he went to pray and his disciples fell asleep, and the cohort of soldiers came to arrest him, and he said, who are you looking for? And they said, Jesus of Nazareth. And he said, I am, meaning God. They all fell down like dead men, showing his power to them. And yet, how thick can people be? Really? 24 soldiers come with armour and whatever, and Christ says to them, I am, and they all fall down as if they're dead, without raising a thing. That only proves to us that all these things were arranged by the Lord in order to get into that nether world and to destroy it once and for all. And may we be found worthy to meet this coming Pascha with a good heart, and more so worthy to stand beside Christ at the general resurrection and at the great and awesome judgment which occurs after that. Amen.